Welcome, wanderer of distant centuries. Tonight we set down the crowns and lay aside the swords. We walk past the castles and cathedrals and step into a single room of wattle and clay, where smoke hangs low, and a life is measured not by glory, but by bread. Set your thoughts beside the hearth, let the wind outside be our bell. This is the morning of a medieval peasant. This is how the world begins when no one is watching. He wakes before the light because light is not his to wait for. The roof creaks. The frost presses its cold face against the thatch. Smoke from last night's fire has softened into a dusky haze that pricks the eyes and warms nothing. A child stirs, small ribs rising beneath a patched blanket. His wife lies on her side, one hand already searching the floor for the flint. They do not speak yet. Morning is made first of movement, then of words. The room is a single breath of earth, wattle and daub, a table like a knee, a door that opens to mud. The rafters are low enough to teach politeness, even to the proud. In one corner, a hen mutters to herself, offended by the cold. In another, a heap of kindling waits like timid promises. The man swings his legs to the floor and feels the truth of winter in his bones. Work must start before hope can arrive. The fire does not take at once. It sulks, a twist of straw, a prayer that is only breath, and then flame. A thin thread of orange, no bigger than a thought, becomes a tongue, becomes a voice. The hut remembers it knows how to glow. His wife sets a small pot near the coals. She will grind what remains of yesterday's grain, sip the heat, and keep the children's hands from the embers. This is bargaining with the season. Outside, the world smells of damp wool and dung. The oxen shift in the pen, steaming white about the shoulders, patient as saints and twice as necessary. He greets them with a sound that is not a word, a kindness the animals understand. Leather creaks. Rope answers the hand with memory. The wooden plough leans against the wall like a humble weapon. He eats, standing up, a crust of yesterday's loaf, a swallow of sour ale. The bread is hard enough to teach gratitude to teeth. He softens it against his tongue and thinks, not of kings, not of wars, not of heaven, but of furrows. The straight, the stubborn, the stones that bruise the blade. He ties his cloak tighter and steps into the morning. Mist lays itself over the field like damp linen. Dawn is a rumor at the far edge of sky. He plants the plough, leans his weight, and the earth replies with a long, old sigh. The first clod turns, dark, cold, clean. Worms fold away from the blade as if the day were a secret they are not ready to share. The oxen take the strain without complaint. Their breath flowers into the air and vanishes. He knows this acre like a psalm. Here the frost lingers. There the barley will sulk. Along the hedge the weeds keep their counsel and return after every penance. He counts by steps, not by hours. The Lord's tithe is a figure he carries in his back, a portion for the granary on the hill, a portion for the altar, a thin slice for hunger. Balance in this world is a knife edge. The bell from the manor floats across the mist, small, important, far away. It is not for him, not truly, but his head bows a little as habit bends the neck with more ease than obedience. Work is prayer when your words have no parchment. The plough bites deeper, the furrows lengthen into patient lines, a script the sky can read if it wishes. He is not alone. Across the hedgerow, a neighbour coughs, and a woman gathers rushes with hands that remember warmer Septembers. A boy drives geese toward water, learning the slow governance of stubborn creatures. Somewhere a dog argues with a crow and loses. Life here is a choir of little labours, each voice small, together sufficient. By mid-morning, a pale sun lifts itself over the hedge, surprised at its own persistence. He halts beneath an ash and unwraps the day's mercy, another slice of bread, softer with the heat of his body, kissed with a smear of goose fat his wife saved from last feast. He does not pray before eating, he prays after, because gratitude sits more honestly on a full mouth. He breaks the crust, leaves a crumble for the birds, and smiles when they approve of the liturgy. Back to the line. Step and lean, step and lean. The body becomes a tool that remembers what the mind forgets. When the blade clatters against stone, he kneels, pries it free, and finds a flint the size of a saint's knuckle. He pockets it for his daughter. Children love the small treasures the field gives back. Later, she will hold it up to the fire as if the fire lived there waiting. Clouds gather like parishioners who will not admit they came for warmth. A thin rain begins, the kindly sort that darkens the soil without scolding it. He works through it. Rain on wool, mud on boot, rope across palm. These are the sacraments that do not require permission. He thinks of nothing and of everything, of the cough that lingers in the childish chest, of the price of salt, of the rumor that the miller has shaved the measure again, of the year his father's hands stilled and he stepped into a furrow he did not feel ready to own. Evening arrives as a decision. The cold sharpens. The oxen look back with the blunt wisdom of beasts who know when a day is complete. He turns the last strip and feels the small victory of straightness hold underfoot. Not much, the world would say. Enough, the body answers. He rubs the oxen's foreheads, thanks them with the gentleness men reserve for creatures and almost never for themselves. He carries the plow home on his shoulder. The track is a ribbon of glossed mud that will freeze by midnight and break ankles by morning if you trust it too quickly. Smoke rises from his roof, blue and thin, and his steps find an old rhythm, work's lullaby. Inside, warmth has learned the corners again. The pot sings softly. The children turn their faces to him as flowers do, within the limits of winter. He eats at the low table, stew of cabbage and a bone that has given its story all week. The taste is better than the ingredients. Hunger is the best cook, his mother used to say, and he has never found reason to argue. A small loaf waits beneath cloth. He leaves the best portion for tomorrow, because hope here wears bread shape. Night lowers itself across the village. The wind rakes the thatch and finds the usual gaps. He will fix them when thaw allows. He lifts his daughter, warm bundle, bright eyes, to the latch and lets her feel the night with her fingers. She laughs at the cold, then hides her face in his neck and breathes his day. He sets her down by the fire and looks at his hands. They are the color of the field now. The line between skin and soil has blurred into something honest. Before sleep, he steps outside once more. The sky is a bowl, black and silver, turned over the world with a carelessness that humbles. Somewhere the Lord's bell speaks again, thin, perfect. He answers without sound. Tomorrow the same work will wait, and the day after, and after. This is not despair. It is a covenant the earth makes with those who listen. Back inside, the children fold into their straw, his wife into her quiet, and he into a fatigue that is clean. The fire settles into its red thoughts. He closes his eyes on a prayer without words. Let the oxen keep their feet. Let the frost be merciful. Let my son grow into his shoulders before the plough asks them. Sleep comes as it always does in houses like this, suddenly, kindly, absolute. And outside in the dark field, the furrows hold their line, waiting for light to discover what night has prepared. Morning is a quiet negotiation with hunger. Before the cock splits the dark, the woman is already awake, sitting cross-legged by the hearth with the quern between her knees, 2 rough stones, a small hand's breadth of grain, and patience, the oldest machinery in the world. She turns the upper stone, slow circles that sound like calm. Flour gathers in a pale drift against the rim, a snowfall the fire approves of. The children sleep 2 breaths longer. The youngest's hand opens and closes, catching dreams. There is not much grain. There is never much. The sacks in the corner are smaller than winter would like. The miller's measure grew generous for himself during the last storm, and the Lord's tithe took the top of the heap, like a king choosing a seat. But flour is flour, and a village builds a day upon it. She pinches last night's leaven from its clay pot, sour and alive, a small city of faithful things, and loosens it with a spoon of warm water. Salt next, measured by memory and thrift. She stirs until the bowl becomes a story her hands have told for years. Flour, patience, breath. When the dough begins to resist, she leans in with her weight, folding the future into itself. On the table, the imprint of her knuckles looks like a script only hunger can read. He wakes to the rhythm of that kneading, the way other men wake to bells. Smoke clings to his hair. The ache of yesterday is already planning tomorrow. He sits, rubs warmth back into his fingers and watches her hands. They are not small, they are exact. He loves them more than anything they have ever made. The children stir. A cough from the boy, a soft complaint from the girl who believes blankets should be deeper than they are. The woman cuts a thin slice from yesterday, loaf, and tenderizes it against the steam of the pot. She dips it into a poor stew, water persuaded by cabbage, a thumb-sized bone that has taught this broth all it knows. The boy gets the most. The girl gets what she will eat without hiding it in her sleeve for a pretend dolly. The man waves away his piece until she pretends to forget him, and then she presses it into his palm as if it were a blessing he must accept. Outside, frost writes its short letters on the door latch. Inside, life organizes itself into work. She sets the dough to rise beneath a cloth warmed near the fire, then takes up the mending. Shirts with elbows that insist on being knees, socks that have learned the shape of toil too well. The needle's path is a sermon in small stitches, not beauty, but endurance. Bread must be baked, but there is no oven here. Ovens belong to lords and to the one widow whose husband built a good one before he died. The village gathers at her door when coals are right and pays in kind words and careful courtesies. Today will be a baking day. When the dough hums beneath the cloth, the woman will carry it under her shawl, walking as still as pride allows, so the air in the bread is not jostled into sorrow. In the meantime, there is spinning. The wheel hums, wool becomes thread, thread becomes a promise against wind. She licks her fingers, teases the staple into a line that holds, and thinks of nothing beyond this room and everything beyond this life. Work here is a prayer that does not need a name. The man steps out to the yard, splits kindling with a courtesy that keeps the axe honest, checks the pig's rope, shakes grain for the hens. The pig lifts its blunt face, a banker considering interest. The hens gossip like nuns and lay their doubts in straw. He finds one egg, warm as a secret, and brings it inside cupped like a saint's relic. The girl claps. The boy pretends not to. The dough has risen, swollen, sleepy, full of small courage. The woman crosses it with a knife, not out of piety alone, but to give steam a door. She wraps it, ties the cloth at the corners, pulls her shawl over her hair, and sets out with her neighbors toward the widow's oven. The road is a corridor of breath. Each woman carries a round future between arms and ribs. They talk softly of the miller, of a lamb-born breach, of the price of salt in the next market town. Along the hedge, a man with nothing left to repair watches them pass and feels the brief warmth of belonging from 10 paces away. At the oven, the widow fusses at the coals like a queen of fire. She opens the mouth and heat leans out, grateful for company. Each loaf goes in with a quick sign and a murmured hope, for crust, for keeping, for the kind of luck that is not too proud to arrive as bread. They wait, rubbing hands, telling the harmless lies that keep a village pleasant. Someone laughs. Even hunger likes to hear it has not won everything yet. Back home, the man has set the board, and the children have practiced pretending not to be in the way. When the woman returns, the room fills with a smell that forgives. She lifts the loaf, sets it on the table, and listens for the small crackling sound of crust, confessing its heat. He rests his hand on it for a moment, feeling the life that will become the day. Then he makes the first cut, crosswise clean, and divides the miracle with justice learned from necessity. The lion's share is tomorrow's. The poor today will eat enough to remember wanting less. They chew slowly. Bread demands respect. Crumbs fall and are saved from the dirtscape with a pinch. Nothing that has cost so much is allowed to become floor. The boy's cough quiets while he eats. The girl hums to the loaf as if singing could persuade it to stretch farther. The woman, last to take her portion, closes her eyes for a heartbeat, and in that private darkness thanks not saints or kings, but heat and grain and the good spoons that stir without breaking. After, he rinses the knife, wipes it on the hem he has already sworn to keep clean, and stands. The field waits. The bread has turned him from dawn's ache into purpose. He kisses the air near his wife's forehead. There is flour on her skin and he will not steal it, and steps into the cold. She tidies the morning into afternoon. Ash raked, pot scolded into shine. The quern returned to its corner like a sleeping animal. She saves a heel of bread for the old man across the lane whose sons march in someone else's cause. Mercy is measured here in small slices. The loaf, now wrapped again and tucked high from small thieves with innocent eyes, becomes the house's quiet heart. Each time a hand touches it, the day steadies. Outside, the bell on the hill speaks noon. Inside, she puts a fingertip to the crust, feels the promise still warm there, and allows herself a luxury rarer than meat. She sits and breathes. Bread has bought her a moment. In this world, that is wealth. The frost has melted into mud that drinks footprints like secrets. The oxen are already yoked, tails twitching at the gnats that should not exist this early in the year. The man tightens the strap, tests the blade, wipes a palm across his brow. A cloud of his own breath follows, dissolving into the grey air. He does not speak to the animals yet. There is a silence that belongs to the start of labor, a kind of reverence, though no priest would call it holy. In that hush, the world waits to see what he will make of it. The plow's first cut is a prayer. It bites into the soil, splitting what was whole, drawing dark veins where frost once slept. The sound is soft, damp, alive. The smell of the earth rises, sharp, rich and faintly sweet, like bread dough that never learned patience. He leans his shoulder into the yoke. The oxen pull. The earth resists. Balance is found not by strength, but by rhythm, by learning the will of mud. He knows this land better than his own reflection, which he has not seen in years. Here, beneath the ash tree, stones hide like bad memories. There, near the stream, the ground swallows the plow if you trust it too much. Each field has a mood. Some accept him easily, others sulk, waiting for sweat before they yield. The Lord's steward once said that tilling the soil was the noblest of all work. But the steward's hands are pale and smooth, shaped for ink, not for rope. The peasant smiled at the time, a small, private smile, because he knows the truth. The field does not care for nobility. It only understands endurance. Hours stretch without notice. He works until his breath becomes part of the landscape, until the body moves on memory alone. Behind him the furrows stand in even rows, brown ribs on the body of the world. He straightens for a moment, resting his spine, and watches the steam rise from the oxen's backs. It looks like prayer or maybe forgiveness. His neighbor, old Thomas, works the next strip of land. They nod across the distance. An entire conversation in that small gesture. Thomas is missing 2 fingers from a mill accident 30 years past, yet his plow lines are straighter than most. Skill is not in the hand, but in the will behind it. By midday, the sky breaks open into a pale sun. He takes off his cloak and hangs it from a wooden post, its damp wool steaming faintly. From his satchel he draws his meal, a heel of bread, a curl of hard cheese, an onion so small it feels like a sin to eat it whole. He cuts it with the care of a man slicing time itself. The bread tastes of ash, the cheese of salt and endurance. He eats slowly, watching the wind ripple the grass beyond the field's edge. The boundary between what belongs to the Lord and what belongs to no one. Somewhere beyond the hills, he imagines the manor, fires burning in clean chimneys, silver cups, the smell of roasted meat. He has been there only once, delivering grain. He remembers the color of the Lord's cloak, deep red, like dried blood, and the way the servants did not look up when he passed. He felt invisible, but not unseen. He wipes his knife on his sleeve and drinks the last of his ale. The sun glints off the blade, a small, quick flash of light, as if the sky itself is laughing at the idea of ownership. When he returns to work, the plough finds its rhythm again, guided by habit older than language. Each step, each pull, each groan of the wood is part of a liturgy that no church has written down. He thinks of his father, who worked this same field before him, and of his son, who will do the same when his back no longer allows it. In this soil lie generations of effort, sweat layered upon sweat. He sometimes wonders what it would be like to walk away, to follow the river south, to see a town with walls and shops and laughter. But then he looks at the field, the slow, breathing thing beneath him, and feels its pull. It is not love. It is something stronger, belonging. A crow lands on the furrow, black wings shining with blue fire in the sunlight. It hops closer, bold, unafraid, cocking its head as if judging his progress. "Go on," the man mutters. "You'll eat enough of it later." The bird answers with a cry that sounds too much like laughter. He drives the plough onward, the oxen groaning softly, their breath mixing with his in the chill air. By dusk, his shoulders are stone, his palms raw. But the work has shape now, visible proof of the hours he has traded for tomorrow's bread. The light fades. He turns the last row and stands for a moment, the world around him dipped in gold and smoke. The field glows, dark, proud, alive. He knows that tonight, when he lies beside the fire, every muscle will burn. But pain is not the enemy. Pain is the proof that the world still needs him. He gathers his tools, pats the oxen's necks and whispers his thanks. The animals blink slow approval. He looks once more at the field, his field, though it belongs to another man, and sees it breathing beneath the dusk. Somewhere in the distance the manor bell tolls again, the same note that ends every day, rich and hollow. He does not bow this time. He simply listens until the sound fades into the mud and becomes part of him. Tomorrow the earth will ask again, and he will answer. It begins as a sound carried on the wind, a low iron note, drawn out and deliberate, the Lord's bell. It tolls from the hill beyond the river, from the tower where sunlight catches the gilded crest above the gate. Every man in the valley hears it, and every man knows what it means. The day's rhythm belongs to someone else. The bell divides the world like a blade. For those in the manor, it marks the hour of mass, of meals, of meetings. For the men in the fields, it is a command disguised as music. Work now, stop now, pay now, pray now. Even the oxen flinch when it rings. The sound ripples through the valley, brushing over thatch and water, rolling across the fields, like a long shadow that never quite reaches the edge. The peasant straightens his back, squints toward the hill. He can just see the glint of banners above the manor walls, red and white, snapping in the wind. He has seen those colors up close only once, when soldiers came to take grain during a war he did not understand. The memory tastes like smoke. He wipes his forehead, takes a slow breath, and listens as the bell finishes its count. 12 strokes. Then silence, the hour of the steward. The steward will walk the edge of the fields today, counting acres, weighing yield with his eyes. He will ask questions that do not need answers. Is the soil firm? Will the harvest be good? Has the priest come for tithe? Questions that sound like conversation, but are really the sound of ownership speaking to itself. The peasant has learned to answer with humility and small words. Yes, sir, if God wills. The earth is kind this year. He does not say that the earth was kinder before the Lord ordered the new mill built across the stream, before water was turned to profit. He does not say that the field took his father and 3 of his brothers. He does not say anything because words are heavier than bread. The steward arrives by noon. His horse's hooves press neat circles into the soft soil, marks the wind will take hours to forget. He wears a leather cloak lined with fur, its smell richer than any meal in the village. He carries a ledger bound in calfskin, each page filled with other people's work, written in careful Latin he cannot quite pronounce. "Good furrows," he says without looking. The peasant nods. "How many strips?" "7, sir. 7.5 by the mark." "Yes, sir." The steward dips his quill into a pot of black ink, makes a note, then rides on. His horse snorts, tossing frost from its nostrils like judgment. The peasant watches him go, thinking not of envy, but of distance, how men can live in the same valley and still inhabit different worlds. When the bell rings again, it's for prayers. The priest's voice drifts down from the manor chapel, thin and confident. The words are Latin, but the rhythm is clear enough. Praise for those who rule, forgiveness for those who serve, mercy for all, in theory. The peasant kneels where he stands, hands folded against the plough, not because anyone is watching, because habit is stronger than rebellion. He mouths the words he remembers, though their meaning has long since dissolved. His prayer is simpler: let the oxen keep their strength. Let the rain come when it should. Let my son grow to see another harvest. He adds quietly, and let the Lord forget this valley for 1 more year. At the manor, the bell continues its liturgy, for dinner, for vespers, for rest. Inside, candles bloom against painted walls, and the hall fills with voices and meat. The Lord eats beneath a tapestry, showing saints in gold and angels with the faces of noblemen. He does not think of the peasants below the hill, of their rough bread or their smoke-choked rooms. He believes honestly that his rule is mercy made visible. And perhaps, in a way, it is. For mercy, like everything else here, flows downward. At dusk, the bell tolls once more, not a command now, but a benediction. Its echo rolls over the darkening fields, brushing against the huts where fires are being coaxed to life. The peasant stops his work, leans on the plough and listens. The sound is soft, distant, almost kind. For a moment, he allows himself to imagine that it is ringing for him. For his sweat, for his silence, for the quiet dignity of keeping the world alive while others dream above it. He looks toward the hill one last time, where the tower burns gold in the dying light. The bell fades, leaving only the whisper of wind through the barley. He smiles, small and tired. The Lord's bell may own the hours, but the night still belongs to those who earn it. By late summer, the valley breathes faster. The air tastes of dust and ripe grain, the fields heavy with promise and threat in equal measure. The stalks bow low, golden, whispering against one another like 1,000 tired voices sharing the same thought. Almost. The peasant stands at the edge of his field, sickle in hand, eyes tracing the lines of barley swaying beneath the sky. He knows that beauty is a deceitful thing. A good harvest can turn to ruin in the space of an hour. All it takes is one dark cloud, one fever, one misstep. Hope is fragile this time of year, and everyone treats it gently, like a wounded child. The first cut is always made in silence, a ritual old as breath. The man bows his head, draws the sickle low, and lets the blade whisper through the stalks. The sound is clean, like fabric torn with reverence. The air fills with the scent of straw, warm and dry and alive. For a moment he feels the pulse of the world, the rhythm of reaping and being reaped, the endless exchange of living things. Every stroke of the sickle is a heartbeat, every sheaf a confession. All through the day the fields fill with motion. Men and women, boys barely grown, old men with spines like question marks. They move together in slow precision, hands and tools catching the sun. Their sweat darkens the soil, their laughter breaks in small, careful bursts, like candles shielded from wind. A song rises, half work, half prayer. It has no author, no beginning, no end, only rhythm. Cut, gather, bind, cut, gather, bind. The Lord Steward rides the edges of the land, his horse's hooves crushing the stubble left behind. He nods, counts, and writes. Every bundle of barley is weighed against the tithe. Every sigh is measured by the value of the grain. The peasants do not look at him. They bow when he passes, then straighten when he's gone, like stalks too stubborn to stay bent. As the sun climbs higher, the air thickens. Flies gather on the sweat of their necks. The youngest boy swats lazily, humming under his breath. His mother watches him from across the rows. She knows what can happen if the child stumbles. The sickle is swift, the earth unforgiving. Every year someone bleeds. Every year the field demands its price. The peasant's wife moves beside him, her skirt tied high for work. She carries herself with a rhythm older than strength. Her hair sticks to her temples. Her hands are red from binding straw. He glances at her and smiles, not because there is joy, but because there is still life. In this world, that's more than enough. At noon, they rest beneath the ash tree. Their meal is simple: bread hard from yesterday, onions, and a bit of salt if fortune allows. They eat without words, eyes half closed against the glare. A breeze stirs the cut grain, making the field shimmer like water. In the distance, thunder grumbles over the hills, a reminder that nothing, not even sunlight, is promised. They have seen what storms can do. Last year, rain came too soon, flattening half the barley in one night. Men wept in the fields, clutching the ruined stalks as if grief might stand them upright again. No one speaks of that summer now, but the memory lives in every movement. A quiet urgency that turns work into prayer. When the clouds grow dark in the east, they hurry. Hands blur, ropes twist, sheaves rise in careful stacks. Children run between the rows, gathering stray stalks for the animals, their laughter sharp against the wind. The man feels the storm before it shows, a weight in his bones, a taste of metal in his mouth. He glances at the horizon, at the line of black rising like a curtain about to fall. They are so close, only 2 rows remain. He swings the sickle harder, faster, breath rasping, fingers numb. And then the first drop falls, fat, cold, deliberate. They do not flee. They finish the last bundle before the rain becomes a sheet. By the time they reach the hut, soaked to the skin, the field is dark and shining. Thunder rolls, long and low, like a warning sent too late. Through the doorway, the man watches the water beat against the earth, flattening the stubble, turning the soil into a black mirror. For hours, the storm does not move. The roof leaks in steady rhythms. The children sleep despite it. His wife sits by the fire, wringing water from her hair, silent. He stands by the door, hands still trembling from the effort, heart caught between pride and dread. If the rain ends soon, the grain will dry. If it lasts till morning, mold will creep through the stacks, and half the harvest will be lost. The difference between survival and hunger rests on the whim of clouds. He closes his eyes and listens to the storm. Each clap of thunder feels like judgment, each gust of wind like a curse. He wants to pray, but the words will not come. The church taught him the Psalms for rain, for mercy, for peace, but none for waiting. Waiting is a kind of faith no priest has time for. By dawn, the rain fades. Mist drifts over the valley, soft as smoke. He steps outside. The ground squelches underfoot, the air heavy with the smell of wet straw and hope. He walks to the field, mud pulling at his boots. The sheaves still stand. Bent, battered, but standing. He exhales, a sound between a laugh and a sob. The field has kept its promise, for now. The sun climbs again, weak and pale, glinting on the damp grain. He looks around at the world he has kept alive with his own hands, and feels something close to fear, because he knows this mercy will have to be earned again tomorrow. The storm passed, and with it came a strange light. That clean golden clarity that only visits the world after ruin has brushed its edge. The fields steam, the puddles shine, and for a few brief days the valley smells of wheat and smoke and life beginning again. It is harvest's end, and that means one thing: the feast of St. Martin, the only night in the year when even hunger rests. All morning the village hums. Children chase chickens that have no intention of being caught. Women knead, stir, and argue kindly over salt. Men mend benches, fetch ale from the barrel behind the smith's shed, patch roofs only enough to keep rain from the food. Even the dogs seem to know that the day will be generous. From the manor hill comes a procession of servants, baskets, casks, and 2 goats led by rope. The steward rides behind them, chin held high, as though generosity were an achievement. The peasants bow as he passes. They thank him for what their own hands have earned. This too is ritual. When the carts are unloaded, the steward nods once and rides away. No one watches him go. By dusk, the world has turned soft. Smoke drifts lazily above the cottages, carrying the smells of roasting meat and rye bread. The sun falls behind the trees in slow splendor, spilling red over thatch and furrow alike. The bell from the chapel tolls one solemn note, not command, not warning, simply permission. They gather around a fire built in the clearing beyond the fields. The flames lick at the dark, painting faces gold. Old Thomas brings his fiddle, its strings worn but loyal. Children clutch mugs too large for their hands, pretending to drink. The women sit close together, shawls drawn, voices soft with the comfort of company. And for the first time in months, no one works. The man sits with his wife and neighbors. He holds a cup of ale, thin but cold, and watches the fire reflect in its surface like a captured sun. The drink burns a little, but it feels honest. He takes a slow sip, lets it rest on his tongue. It tastes like everything he's done to earn it: blisters, sweat, patience, and the strange peace that follows exhaustion. Someone starts a song, a low circular tune with too few words and too many memories. Voices join, uneven and true. The melody rises, weaves through the smoke, catches in the branches overhead. Children clap on the wrong beats. Dogs bark in approval. The sound becomes a single living thing, joy in the only form this valley understands: rough, borrowed, and fleeting. He looks around and wonders if heaven sounds like this: laughter without arrogance, music without instruments, hunger without fear. When the food comes, it's a miracle in clay bowls. Stew thick with lentils, meat in pieces large enough to argue over. Bread still warm from the widow's oven. The man's wife eats slowly, eyes closed for a moment with each bite. Her hands, still cracked from harvest, cradle the bowl as though it might vanish. She offers him her last piece of bread. He pretends not to see. Love here is always quiet and always disguised as kindness. Athanasius the miller stands and raises his mug. "To the year that did not take us," he says. A murmur of laughter, a few nods. One whispered, "Amen." He adds, "And to those it did," and no one speaks. They lift their cups in the direction of the churchyard instead. The silence that follows is soft, not heavy, the way earth feels after rain. Later, when the children have fallen asleep by the fire and the ale has turned to stories, the man finds himself staring into the embers. Each spark that lifts into the air looks like a small prayer changing its mind. Old Thomas plays a slow tune now, something from before the wars, before the plagues, before any of them were born. The notes wind through the night like smoke from a candle. The man feels the weight of the year settle in his bones. He has worked every day since the last feast. He will work every day until the next. But in this one narrow space between labor and waiting, he allows himself to rest. His wife leans against his shoulder, eyes half closed. Her hair smells of smoke and flour. He thinks of how she looks in winter, cheeks raw, breath clouded, and how the sight of her stillness now feels like the richest thing in the world. At the edge of the firelight, the priest prays in Latin, his face flickering like an old candle. No one listens closely. They are praying in their own way, through warmth, through song, through the simple miracle of being alive together. A log collapses, sending a rush of sparks into the sky. For a heartbeat, it looks like the stars are falling down to join them. The man watches until the embers fade, and in that fading, he feels something ancient stir. A quiet, wordless gratitude, not to any god in particular, but to the world itself. When the fire burns low, they carry the sleeping children home. Ash clings to their hands, to their hair, to their clothes. Tomorrow they will wash it away, return to the fields, count what remains of the barley. The fear will return, as it always does. But tonight there is warmth. Tonight the ash smells of bread and laughter, and when the last ember dies, it leaves behind a silence so deep you could almost believe the land itself is whispering. The world turns grey. The fields, once gold and loud with life, lie flattened beneath frost, the earth sealed and silent. The wind moves through the valley like a thief, unseen, but leaving nothing untouched. Smoke rises from a dozen crooked chimneys, the only sign that life endures here at all. Winter has arrived, and with it comes hunger that no prayer can sweeten. Morning begins in darkness and ends in something only pretending to be day. The man wakes to the sound of his own breath and the faint cracking of ice in the bucket beside the door. The fire has died again in the night. It always does. He stirs it back to life with the patience of habit, coaxing flame from ashes like a miracle learned too late. The hut smells of smoke, wool, and cold bread. The children sleep close together under a blanket patched so often it has become more patch than cloth. His wife sits beside the hearth, eyes red from the smoke, turning what remains of the grain into porridge so thin it reflects the ceiling. No one complains. In winter, complaint feels like vanity. He breaks the fast with a spoonful of warmth, tasting ash and gratitude. The children's bowls are smaller but full. He eats last. The youngest laughs when the spoon clinks against the pot. A fragile sound, a small rebellion against the cold. Outside, the world waits, still and indifferent. The soil that once took the plough now resists even footprints. The tools hang on the wall, patient as relics. The man runs his thumb along the blade of the sickle, dull now, harmless. Like everything else, by midday the village moves in slow ritual. Men cut wood from the Lord's forest, careful not to be seen by the forester's men. The penalty for stealing a branch is a hand, for stealing a tree, a life. Still, a fire needs feeding. The law, they say, cannot freeze colder than flesh. He drags home what he can carry, crooked limbs, splintered roots, whatever the snow allows. Each piece will become an evening, then a night, then nothing. The fire is greedy. It eats warmth faster than he can earn it. But it is the only creature they can afford to feed. His wife mends by the window's thin light, her fingers moving in silence. She hums sometimes, though never a tune that can be named. Her songs are made of motion, not melody. They keep the air from becoming too still, the hours from falling asleep. The boy tends the pig, now lean and restless in its pen. Soon, when the cold deepens, it will be slaughtered, a grim festival, the only one winter allows. The man dreads it, yet counts the days. The animal's life is a promise the season demands they break. Mercy here comes with a knife. When night falls, it does not arrive quietly. It drops like a curtain, thick and sudden, swallowing the valley whole. The wind rattles the door. Frost creeps across the window, drawing delicate patterns no one dares admire. Beauty feels wrong when you're cold. The family sits close to the fire. The flames paint their faces in gold and shadow, like saints in a forgotten chapel. They eat slowly, pretending the stew is thicker than it is. Outside, wolves cry from the forest, not close, but near enough for the heart to notice. The children stare into the dark. He tells them the same story his father told him, about the moon being a shepherd, and the stars his flock of dogs. It is not true, but truth is not what stories are for. The girl laughs once, a small warm sound that lasts longer than the tale itself. He feels the warmth of it even after she sleeps. Later, when the fire sinks to embers, he steps outside. The cold bites like iron, breath turns to fog. The sky is enormous, black, infinite, silent. The stars seem closer in winter, as if the world is smaller and heaven has leaned down to watch. He looks toward the fields, ghostly now, covered in frost, lines of white where furrows once lived. They look like bones beneath a shroud. He wonders how many winters his father saw, how many his son will survive. The thought feels heavy, like holding time itself. Behind him the door creaks open, his wife's voice soft and rough. "Come inside, you'll freeze." He turns. Her face is pale in the firelight, eyes reflecting the flame. He smiles, just a little. "I already have," he says, half joking, but he steps inside. The warmth welcomes him back, fragile but faithful. He lies beside the children, their breaths even and calm. His wife settles beside him. The fire sighs one last time before resting into a red glow. He listens to the wind, to the creak of the roof, to the steady heartbeats beside him. Sleep comes slowly, like thaw. And before he drifts away, he whispers a small prayer, not to God, not to saints, but to the coming dawn. Let the sun rise again tomorrow. That is all I ask. The first thaw comes like a whisper, not in warmth, but in sound. A single drop falling from the eave, a soft sigh from the earth beneath the snow. The frost loosens its grip, though it does not let go entirely. The world begins to smell again. Damp wood, smoke, rot and life. The man wakes to that sound, drip, 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 and feels something stir in his chest that is not quite hope, but close. Outside, the horizon bleeds grey into blue. The fields wait beneath their shroud, patient, watchful, unforgiving. Soon, they will need him again. Soon the plough will return to its altar of mud. Before work begins anew, there is confession. The priest has come down from the manor, riding a mule that looks as weary of salvation as its rider. His cloak is thick, trimmed with fur, his hands soft, the kind of hands that hold books, not tools. But the villagers bow all the same. It is Lent, and sin must be spoken before the thaw begins. The earth, like heaven, demands honesty before it yields. They gather in the small wooden chapel, smoke-stained and crooked. The roof leaks, the candles sputter, but faith here is stubborn. It survives on repetition and fear. The priest lifts his hands. He speaks of penance, of pride, of the snares of the devil that lie in idleness and disobedience. His Latin washes over them like rain on stone. Few understand the words, but the rhythm is enough. Guilt has its own music, and they all know the tune. When it is the peasant's turn, he kneels at the worn step of the confessional, just a stool and a shadow between him and the man of God. The air smells of wax and sweat and old wood. He lowers his head. "Bless me, Father, for I have sinned." The words come as if they belong to someone else. "What troubles your soul, my son?" the priest asks, voice smooth, practiced. The man hesitates. He wants to speak of anger, the kind that comes when the steward S-count steals an extra sack of grain. He wants to speak of envy, when he sees the Lord's wife ride by, dressed in color, laughing at something too light for this world. He wants to speak of fear, of the nights when hunger watches from the corner like a patient guest. But these are not the sins he knows the priest expects. He says instead, "I cursed the frost." A pause. "And I doubted the harvest." The priest nods unseen. "3 prayers to Saint Isidore, and you will be forgiven. Do not curse what God sends, my son. The frost humbles us, and humility is the seed of grace." The man bows his head. "Yes, Father." The priest does not see the small, sad smile that follows. Grace, he thinks, feeds no one. After Mass, the priest walks the village. He blesses doors with water, listens to petitions, scolds a child for laughter during prayers. His words are kind enough, but distant, like a man describing fire who has never been burned. He speaks of heaven as though it were nearby, just behind the clouds. The peasants nod, though they know heaven is far and the earth is closer. The priest rides on. When his mule's hooves fade, the village exhales. That afternoon the man visits the edge of his field. The snow lies in streaks now, melting to reveal the dark, wet skin of the soil beneath. He runs his hand through it, cold, slick, alive. The mud clings to his palm like something that remembers him. He whispers a small prayer, not from the missal but from memory, for strength of hand, for mercy in rain, for peace between the plough and the root. He does not pray for heaven, he prays for another season. His wife joins him, her shawl pulled tight, the ends of her fingers raw from winter's work. The priest said spring will be early, she says. He nods. Did he speak to the clouds then? She laughs softly. No, but he looked at the sky as if he might. That's enough for some men, he murmurs. They stand together in silence, watching the slow return of color to the world. A crow calls from the ash tree, its cry sharp and impatient. He looks toward the horizon and sees the faintest green thread along the ridge, grass daring to live again. It feels like a promise, though he knows better than to trust promises. That night, as the fire burns low, the man lies awake. He thinks of the priest's sermon, about grace, humility, patience. He wonders if God truly looks down upon the fields, upon the bent backs, the cracked hands, the empty bowls, and calls it holy. He hopes so. But part of him suspects that heaven, like the Lord's manna, is simply too far away to notice. He turns on his side, listening to the quiet breathing of his children. The fire pops. The wind sighs against the roof. Tomorrow he will begin sharpening the plough again. Confession is done. Now comes the real penance, the kind that lasts until harvest and can only be absolved by the rain. The thaw completes its slow forgiveness. Rivers swell and wander across the meadows, carrying with them the ghosts of winter, broken branches, leaves turned to paper, fragments of ice that glitter like lost coins. The valley exhales. After months of grey, color returns. Hesitant at first, then bold. Green creeps up the hillsides like courage rediscovered. The man stands in his field, mud clinging to his boots, the plough gleaming in the pale morning light. This is the hour he has waited for through all the cold and silence, the first turning of the living earth. He breathes deep, the smell of soil thick and sweet, almost human. Every farmer knows this scent. It is the closest thing to truth. He places his hand on the oxen's necks, feels their steady warmth, the slow heartbeat beneath the skin. They've survived the winter together, barely. He whispers to them, words without meaning, just gratitude in sound. The animals lower their heads, patient, ready. They know what comes next. He sets the blade, pushes. The plough cuts through the wet earth with a sigh. Behind it, a furrow opens, dark and shining, as though the world is remembering how to breathe. The man straightens, chest rising with quiet triumph. He has turned the first line of spring. His wife appears at the edge of the field, shawl caught in the wind, holding a small cloth bundle. Inside, the seeds. Wheat and barley, saved grain from the last harvest, guarded through the hunger months like treasure. She kneels and opens the bundle, letting the kernels spill across her palm. They shine like small coins, like promises made to no one and everyone. He takes a handful, feels their weight, light as dust, heavy as prayer. This is all we have, she says softly. It will be enough, he answers. He doesn't know if it's true, but saying it makes it real. Together they scatter the seeds into the furrows. Each throw is a vow. Each fall of grain is a leap of faith. Children laugh nearby, chasing each other along the ridges, their shoes sinking into mud. Their laughter feels like something sacred, proof that the world still remembers joy. The man watches them for a moment, then turns back to the field. The sun has climbed higher, bright enough now to make him squint. He can feel the warmth reach his skin, a promise that life has not forgotten its debt to him. Around the village, other men are working too. Voices rise and fall across the land, calling, laughing, cursing the stubbornness of soil. Even the crows seem kinder today, more curious than cruel. The air hums with effort, and for once the effort feels like hope. By noon, the man's back aches, his palms raw, but he does not stop. He has waited too long to complain. Each furrow that opens beneath the plough feels like a heartbeat, steady, certain. The field begins to take shape again, an order restored, a rhythm rediscovered. The land forgives, slowly, as it always does. When the work pauses, he sits by the stream, dipping his hands into the cold water. The surface trembles, reflects the sky, and for the first time in months, he sees blue. Not the dull grey of winter or the heavy black of night, but true blue, clear, endless, unbothered. He stares for a long time until the reflection of his face ripples and disappears. It feels right that the water should not remember him. Men like him are meant to pass through the world like weather, felt, not recorded. That evening, the village smells of smoke and wet grass. Every hearth burns again, every window glows. The children's faces are flushed, their hands dirty, their laughter easy. The women hang laundry by the stream, white sheets fluttering like wings against the sunset. For a moment, everything looks clean, washed by the thaw, blessed by fatigue. The man walks the border of his field one last time before dark. He listens to the soft hiss of wind through the new grass, to the slow hum of insects finding their way home. He kneels and presses his palm into the soil. It feels warm, alive. He whispers to it, a farmer's benediction older than scripture. Take what we give, and give what you can. Do not betray us, do not forget us. The earth does not answer, but he feels its quiet breathing beneath his hand. That is enough. When night comes, the stars return brighter than before, as though winter had polished them for this. He stands at the door of his hut, watching them rise. His wife leans against the frame beside him, her eyes reflecting the same distant fire. "Do you think it will be a good year?" she asks. He nods. "I think it will be a year," he says, smiling. She laughs softly, the sound of spring itself. They stand there together, hand in hand, while the wind carries the scent of soil and smoke through the night. Tomorrow there will be more work, there always is. But tonight the land has remembered them, and that is enough. The field stands tall again. Summer has come in full voice, loud with crickets, warm with breath. The wheat moves like a sea of gold under the sky's slow turning, and in its waves are the memories of every season. Frost, rain, hunger, patience. Each stalk a small story, written by calloused hands and silent prayers. The man stands at the edge of it all, older now than last year, though only a few moons have passed. Work ages differently than time. His back bends as the earth bends. His hands are carved from years of repetition, furrow, seed, harvest, hunger, hope. He runs a thumb along his palm, feeling the deep cracks where soil still hides. There are lines even the river cannot wash away. It is the eve of harvest again, and the air tastes of dust and sun. The children, taller, louder, braver, chase one another along the borders of the field, their laughter scattering birds. His wife watches them from the doorway, shawl around her shoulders, though the evening is warm. Her hair has silver in it now, not much, just enough to glint like starlight when the fire catches it. She hums the same tune she did last year, the one without words. The same melody her mother hummed, and her mother before her. A song that doesn't belong to anyone, because it belongs to everyone who has worked and waited and endured. The man walks the length of his land one last time before the scythes come out. He touches the grain as he goes, fingertips brushing the heads in a kind of farewell. He thinks of his father, of the old man's hands, thick and strong even at the end. He remembers the smell of his sweat, the way his laughter sounded like soil turning. When he was a boy, he used to think his father was a giant. Now he knows he was just a man trying to keep the world alive for one more season. And he wonders if his own son, when he is grown, will think the same of him. In the distance, the bell from the manor rings again, faint, familiar, eternal. Its sound rolls down the hills, through the barley, across the roofs, and into the bones of every living soul in the valley. The man listens, head tilted, expression unreadable. That bell has marked every day of his life, birth, labor, feast, death. It will toll for him one day too. And when it does, he hopes the fields will answer. With wind, with movement, with the sound of things continuing. He smiles faintly. Time is a circle, not a line. The land taught him that. When the first cut of harvest comes, it is his son who makes it. The boy, no longer a child, not yet a man, bends low, just as his father did. He hesitates for a heartbeat, then slices clean through the stalks. The sound is the same as it has always been, a soft, sacred tearing. The father watches, pride and melancholy woven into the same breath. He sees in that motion the same rhythm that shaped his own life and his father's before him. The endless giving of the body to the soil and the quiet promise that it will one day return the favor. The boy looks up, smiling. The man nods, saying nothing. There is no need for words between men who share the same field. That evening the sun sinks low, turning the world to amber. Smoke curls from every chimney, and the village hums with the calm of honest exhaustion. The man sits on the doorstep of his hut, sharpening the sickle one last time. Each scrape of stone against metal sounds like a heartbeat counting itself down. The tool gleams in the dying light, patient, familiar, ready. His wife joins him, hands folded in her lap. For a while they simply sit and watch the light fade from the hills. The air is warm, thick with the scent of cut grain and wildflowers. A bell rings again, not from the manor this time, but from the small chapel below. The priest calling for vespers. He does not rise. Instead, he bows his head where he sits and whispers his own prayer for the land that has kept us, for the bread that will come, for the hands that remain. Night gathers slow and blue. The stars return, ancient and patient as ever. He lies beside his wife, listening to the wind slide through the cracks of the roof. Sleep pulls at him gently, the way the tide pulls at the shore. He thinks of the field, of his son, of the small, simple truth that has carried him through all things. The world only asks that you keep it alive for the next day. And when the day comes that he can no longer answer that call, someone else will. That is the only eternity a farmer needs. Outside, the moon climbs over the valley. The wheat gleams silver in the darkness, swaying in slow rhythm with the wind. The earth hums its low, ancient song, a sound older than bells, older than kings. It is the sound of everything that endures, of hands that work, of hearts that wait, of lives lived quietly beneath the Lord's sky. And in that quiet, the world for once feels complete. And so, traveler, the year ends where it began. In the quiet breath between earth and sky, the plough rests, the fields sleep, and the hands that shape them fade back into the soil, leaving only their rhythm behind, the steady pulse of work, of love, of endurance. The man is gone now, his name, his breath, his story, all folded into the same earth that once fed him. But listen closely, and you can still hear him, in the wind that bends the wheat, in the crackle of a hearth on a cold morning, in the simple prayer whispered before the first bite of bread. History rarely remembers men like him, but the world does. Every loaf, every harvest, every sunrise owes something to those who kept it turning. Quietly, humbly, faithfully. And maybe that is enough. To live, to leave behind nothing but the proof of having cared for the world and the echo of a heartbeat buried in the furrows. Thank you for walking this path with me tonight. Tell me, where are you listening from? And what time is it, wherever you are? Until next time, keep the fire warm and remember the hands that made your tomorrow possible.